So one of the things with the exchange was that we didn't want it to just be something where an artist from Cape Dorset would come down to Toronto, but also to start to build a partnership where an artist could go up to Cape Dorset as well, because the studios up there are state of the art. The artists are so talented, and often 2 weeks just isn't enough in Toronto to get to know people, and we want to get to know artists in their home as well. And so listening to Tim talk when he was in the studio, he was always talking about his family, and he was always talking about the land, and he'd always say, Anna, I'm going to take you to my office. And the office was the land, it was not like the open studio office. He said, if you come up, I'm going to take you to my office. And so I was, again, really fortunate to be able to go up, and one of the things that I do is I do etching in printmaking, so I work on copper. And one of the things up in Cape Dorset is that there's amazing lithography, and there's amazing stone cut, which I'll show pictures of, but often the etching studios don't get used. So I was invited up in 2016 to go and see what the equipment was like, and to actually work with Shuna, one of the very talented artists in Cape Dorset. So there's Tim. He met me right away on the snowmobile. And so these are the old studios. So I'll talk about the old and new studios. So in Cape Dorset, the old studio was split into the stone cut studio, and then on the other side of the road is the lithography studio and also the drawing studio. So it was two sides to the studios there. So this is the stone cut studio. Some of the wonderful carvers working there. I think that's Gaby-Trotz. And he's got a piece in the collection this year as well, which is really interesting to see one of the carvers, because often the carvers are working on prints that are not necessarily their own, so they're creating work for other artists who do the drawings, and then the carvers do the prints. But Gaby-Trotz actually does both the drawings and the carvings, so seeing his print in the collection this year was really amazing, because he knows that process, and he's able to take both the drawing and then take it through the print technique as well. This is one of Sam Gaby-Trotz's pieces being printed. And just like such attention to detail, and then done with a spoon. Like, it's just like, oh my God, this is amazing printmaking, and so physical, and so technical, and working with your nose to that stone. That's, a 7 or 8 hour day spent picking up these stones. So this is the other side of the street. This is the litho studio. And so in there was the drawing studio. So Tim, when I was up there, was working on a large walrus drawing. And that was, again, a really amazing experience to see him working in his home. And then Shu and I was working on a large bone drawing. And then this is Nibby, who's one of the senior litho printers. And that's a Shu and I print, actually, that he was working on when I was up there. This is the etching press that I ended up using. So part of my task was to go up and look at the equipment. In Toronto, I'm really used to having everything's right there. I've got all my equipment, and actually Bill Ritchie, who's the manager of the studio, he got windbound in Iqaluit, so he was a couple days behind me, and so I flew in just before him, and so I didn't know where anything was. I didn't know where the copper was. I didn't know. I had to go to the store, buy sandpaper. I had to introduce myself to the artists, and Tim helped me quite a bit while I was there as well. So it was kind of a fun adventure. So I started to work with Shu and I on an etching plate. And so this is one that she was working on a large bone drawing. And so with copper, you coat copper in an acid-resistant material, and the artist actually starts to draw the line work in with, it's called an etching needle, and so you're removing parts of the ground that's acid-resistant, and the areas that she removes, you etch in the acid, and those become the lines. And so this was the drawing that she was working from. And so again, one of the things that was great about this experience was being able to actually work with an artist right in the space and being able to have a dialogue where we could say, okay, we've done this line, like, what do you think of this? Okay, do you want this darker? Do you want this lighter? Do you want to change this? And being able to work in real time with someone, so that really, like, I'm the facilitator of someone else's piece. It's not, I'm not necessarily directing. So this is one of the finished pieces that was in the collection last year. I think she called it Journey to the Past. And so there's the little figures above on the bones, and then the bottom was, she described it as a graveyard or a burial ground. That was interesting. And then this was one, and when you do etching, you have to do everything backwards, because you print it backwards, and so text has to be backwards. And so she did the, and it took syllabics backwards, and I can't read them, and so I said, are they backwards? And I said, yes. And so then I couldn't check, so I showed it to Tim, and he looked at me and he was like, oh no. Those are all backwards. And it was like, oh no, this is a week of work, I've flown up here, they're all backwards. And then he started to laugh. Totally pulled my leg. I think. But what I think it says is Shubhanai and Anna handmade, and then we came here to play in 2016, and then the young person on the right-hand side is holding a kugla, I think. Is that what you say? Kugla. And it's a traditional lamp or something that you would heat a tent with. So I thought it was really interesting that she had drawn this image of very youthful people holding something that would be sort of like the thing that could sustain your culture, and the traditional clothing mixed with also the very sort of urban clothing as well. I thought it was a very, very interesting image that way.